Hi everybody, my name is Timothy Hode, and today I'm going to be talking about the bread and butter of my live music setup, the Boss VE-8 Acoustic Singer pedal. Now, I'm no Boss pedal expert, but I'm going to share from first-hand experience what this pedal does, and if you're looking to buy one or if you're just interested, it's really worth just having a quick rundown of all the features. 99% of the time when I finish a gig, I have people coming up asking me what this pedal is and what it does. I'm so surprised that it's not used more often amongst more musicians. It's just such a great versatile piece of kit, and I just thought it'd be interesting to share a little review with you. So in a nutshell, if you're an acoustic musician, I would highly recommend getting this pedal because it's great for guitar effects, it's really great for vocal effects like harmonies and things, which we'll get into, and it's also got a loop feature as well. So let me break it down to you into each section and I'll tell you what each bit does. So starting from left to right, top to bottom, in the guitar section we've got acoustic resonance. This is basically the tone of your acoustic, and it's got some really lovely tones. The higher you turn the dial, the greater the crisp the resonance of your acoustic. And this button underneath, pressing the shape, will just again change the type of tone that your acoustic is making. Reverb. I'm somebody who hates a dry signal, so just putting a little bit of reverb on there is great, and you get so many different options as well. The higher you turn the dial, the wetter the signal is going to be. There's 4 different types of reverb. You've got what I think is room, hall 1, hall 2, and ambience. I tend to stick with church, but only on maybe 25% of the signal, just because it's nice to sort of create a bit of ambience without, the whole thing sounding a bit too echoey, and it sounds really great. So this feature is called Notch, which suppresses the acoustic feedback that can occur depending on the position or surroundings of your guitar and amp. Turning the dial towards the right suppresses feedback at a higher frequency, and turning the dial to the left suppresses feedback at a lower frequency. You can also press the phase button underneath to help isolate the problem and see if it can reduce the feedback. So this last dial is the guitar effects, and though it's called chorus, you've got a plethora of guitar effects. You've got tremolo, you've got delay, you've got near delay, you've got SG, which I think is slow gain, where a sound will just kind of rise over time, which is really lovely. You've got ring modulator, you've got a phaser, you've got an octave. It's a really great part of the pedal, and it can really transform what you're playing. Top tip, if you already have this pedal and you don't know about it, because I didn't know this feature until like a year after I bought it, you can actually manipulate the guitar effects as well. So for example, the octave, you can turn the octave up so it's 12 semitones higher, or you can turn it down so it's 12 semitones lower, which is really good if you want to make like a bass kind of sound. You can also combine different effects together to make a more interesting sound. Not all of the effects can be combined with each other. You'll have to refer to the manual for what works and what doesn't. But it's just good to play around and see what you can put together. So yes, really great part of the pedal. Turning up the dial makes the sound wetter or drier relative to how much of the effect you want. And that brings us to the first pedal. All the guitar effects can be turned on by pressing the pedal, and again turned off by pressing it. What's great about this pedal though is you press and hold it and it turns into a guitar tuner as well. So if you've set up a live loop and it's playing away and you just quickly need to check the tuning on your strings, just turn that on, it will keep the loop going and you can subtly check your strings. It also stops any outbound signal, so whatever you're tuning won't be broadcast to your audience, which is great. Okay, next is the vocal section. Exactly the same setup as the guitar, but the dials do different things. Let me show you. So again, left to right, top to bottom, the first one is enhance. This isn't like a volume dial, this is more presence for the vocals. Effectively, it separates your vocal signal from your guitar signal, so there's a lot more clarity and you can just hear a lot more of what you're singing. I try not to turn this up too much, just enough that my vocals are a bit more prominent, a bit more present than the guitar signal is. Again, it doesn't work the same as volume. If you just crank the volume up, you will be heard, of course, but it won't blend as nicely as it does by having the enhance on. So yeah, about 50% is usually about right. So this button underneath is called correct, and this absolutely blows my mind. So it will auto-tune you in real time as you sing. It will just correct any bum notes and just any kind of bits where you're a bit flat or a bit sharp. And it's a really great feature. It just goes to show how much of a workhorse this pedal really is. Okay, next is reverb, and this works exactly the same way as the guitar pedal does, where the higher the dial, the wetter the signal. The parameters are the same. Okay, next we have the harmony section. Along with the reverb, I love using harmony in shows, and it's pretty much the main reason why I bought this pedal in the first place. Let me take you through the different features and why I'd recommend you should definitely have this as part of your setup. First, the dial on the left will select which vocal effect you're after. You've got high, you've got higher, you've got high and higher, you've got low, you've got high and low for a bit more of like a full kind of choir-like chorus sound. Then you've got double, which will duplicate your vocals. It's really good for making like a studio quality sound. You've got radio, distortion, and electronic. The dial on the right will dictate how present you want these effects to be. I try not to have it turned up too loud for the harmonies because I feel like it can be a bit overpowering, but like sort of 60-70%, just enough to notice an extra layer throughout the song. The quality of these harmonies are absolutely incredible. It works, I think, by splitting the vocal signal into two, and then it pitch shifts one of them into the key that you set it or that it recognizes from the guitar chords being played, and it will play it back in real time along with what you're singing. So you can set the parameter of how you want the VE-8 to set the harmonies. You can do auto, which the pedal will analyze the guitar chords being played and will place the harmonies to what it thinks is the right key. It does work really well, but you have to be very clear with what you're singing. You can't like half sing something because it won't be as accurate. If you want the harmony pedal to adhere to a specific key, you can do that by pressing the key button. You can do both in a feature called hybrid, where basically you'll say, we're singing in this key, but if I start to go in this direction, then just come with me. So just like the guitar effects, the harmonies will activate when you press this pedal and will turn off when you press it again. If you press and hold it, it will bypass any reverb that you've got on. So if you don't want to sound like you're stuck in a well, if you've got lots of reverb when you're talking to your audience in between songs, then just press and hold, bypass it, and it'll be a completely dry signal coming out. So that's really handy. So before we carry on to the last section on this pedal, we need to briefly talk about the stomp memory feature. Say that you've got a setup that you really like with your guitar effects and your vocal reverbs and everything, but you're going to start to do a different song and you don't manually want to change the preset. You can assign that particular preset you've got into a memory bank on the pedal, which is really cool. All you have to do is press and hold the guitar pedal and the vocal pedal, and it will turn into memory mode. So I'll show you in just a minute how to save the presets into the memory, but basically this is the part where you're recalling what you saved. So you can cycle through, I think there's 99 presets you can save, and it's a great way of just recalling a particular setup that you quite liked. Just a note though, if you're cycling through to say the third preset where you've got a particular thing saved, if you've saved it with, say, the phaser active, the phaser will still be active and it won't turn off until you come out of the memory into that preset, and then you can turn it off. You can also plug in an external foot switch to help cycle through the memory banks, so you're not having to do a tap dance on the pedal if you're cycling through different presets in a short amount of time. Okay, so last section on the pedal is the output. So top left you've got your guitar level, which goes from 1 to 99. Then next you've got the vocal, which is exactly the same. Underneath you'll notice the buttons for these dials. These refer to the loop pedal, which I'll explain in just a moment. This last box of buttons refer to two things. Going back to our chat about the memory preset, you can cycle through the presets manually by pressing these buttons or by pressing the pedals. But let's say you've made a preset and you want to commit it to memory. Simply press and hold the memory button, the lights will flash, and it will show you the available banks. Once again, there's 99 to choose from. A good tip is to write down on a piece of paper what each memory bank is. This song is this number preset, this song is this number preset, kind of thing. Right, onto the loop pedal. This loop pedal is a really generous feature to what's a great pedal anyway, so far. The loop pedal is a one-channel loop that's really good for just adding some extra layers into your song. The bit I like the most about this feature is that you can tell the VE-8 to just loop the guitar or just the vocals or both in a song by pressing these buttons underneath the guitar and vocal dials I mentioned earlier. It's really great to be singing and looping at the same time, knowing that your vocals aren't being captured accidentally in the loop, and it just saves time rather than not singing and waiting for the loop to come around again. To pause whatever you're looping, just press the pedal twice, which I won't lie, it takes a bit of practice to get right, but becomes second nature before long. And to wipe the loop, just press and hold the pedal. Note, you cannot save your loops to the memory banks, just bear that in mind. It's not like the Boss RC30, for example, that stores what you make, but to be fair, it's a small trade-off for everything else that this pedal gives you as a whole. Aside from that though, it's a really great feature, and if you've never looped before, it's a really good introduction into the world of looping. And so, the last little bit before we wrap up is the inputs and output section on the reverse. From left to right, you've got a mic sensitivity dial, which is really helpful to avoid feedback if your mic is particularly sensitive. Underneath, you've got the standard guitar input jack. Next to it, you've got the mic XLR input. Next to that, you've got an option to use phantom power if your mic needs it. Next is an aux input, which I found really great if you work to backing tracks. And then you've got left and right line out jacks. You've also got a headphone jack, which for the record doubles up really well as a monitor if you plug in any headphones that you have, so it's quite handy instead of plugging in a speaker on the stage, particularly if the environment's really noisy. If for some reason you've got like a low level hum going through, you can flick this switch and hopefully it should mitigate the problem. Then you've got your standard left and right XLR outputs. Over here you have the option to plug in a separate Boss switch foot pedal to cycle through the memory banks like we talked about earlier. Underneath you have a USB connectivity as well. I find this is really useful for plugging into your DAW if you're trying to capture ideas, particularly if you're looping and you want to remember how the loop goes. I won't say it's great for recording in general though. Whilst you can, the signal input is quite quiet compared to what it could be. I use this feature mainly for live streams when I plug it into my MacBook. It saves having to set up like an audio interface and all this other pieces of kit that I don't need. It's just everything in this pedal, which is really helpful. It's super important to note though that you can't plug this pedal directly into your phone. You will need an audio interface for that. I've tried in the past, it just doesn't work. If you're trying to record into GarageBand, it won't recognize it. Then you've got your plug-in point, a plug is included in the box, and of course your power on-off switch as well. And lastly, I use this pedal all the time when I go busking, so underneath there's the option to have 6 AA batteries. 6 AA batteries will last you a couple of hours, easy. So there you go. I hope that this review helps anyone who's looking to buy one of these or is just interested in how this pedal works in particular. Having used this pedal religiously for over 3 years now, I literally can't be without it. It's an incredibly versatile piece of kit and it gives you so much more than what it's worth. If you have any questions, fire away in the comments. And I hope you liked the video. Thank you so much for checking it out. Take a look at my other videos, some of which actually feature the pedal. Like, subscribe, and go and get yourself one of these. You won't regret it. Thanks very much.